Hey everyone, welcome back to Jamgear, the place where we take a closer look at the highs, the lows, and the downright bizarres of pop culture. Today we'll be reacting to how Marvel has destroyed itself by Sidney Lumet. Now, in my personal opinion, Marvel destroyed itself the moment it decided that we were going to put agendas over characters, what they stand for and what they believe in. If a character is going to be gay or from another race or something, that's fine, but it should not be the thing that dictates a character and why they prevail or why you should believe them. It should be for the characters, the good that they do, the people that they save, not stooping to the low levels of being a villain or doing things the other way. These are the things, the caring of people. These are things that make up heroes. But when you essentially put together movies and such because we want to bring women with more power, that people get more recognition in the way that you guys are giving it off. So. In my personal opinion, that no, that didn't work, and it has shown because so far everything has either been weak or a flop. With only exception being Deadpool and Wolverine, which it's Deadpool and Wolverine. They're not gonna follow that all the way through with all of that. Can they? Now the question is, can Marvel replicate this and go forward? Especially seeing as how them have Robert Downey Jr. in there. I don't know. We shall see, but let's get into the video and see what's up.
Avengers!
When Marvel released Avengers Endgame in 2019, it was the epic peak of the MCU.
Assemble.
The movie brought together every superhero in the cinematic MCU into one universe-wide battle, and fans couldn't wait to see how the Infinity Saga would end.
Rarely do you get an opportunity as a filmmaker to work on movies that are cultural events like this.
But after Endgame, Marvel had a problem. This happened to Iron Man.
You can rest now.
And Captain America turned into this guy.
Maybe
Yeah, phasing out the old characters.
Telling me to get.
For the first time in more than a decade, the MCU was a clean slate. So what was next?
There are more projects in less years because of all the amazing stuff we're now allowed to do on Disney+.
Yes, we got a lot of content fast. Marvel released 10 movies and 10 miniseries in just 3 years. Yet, strangely enough, it feels like all the content is going nowhere. But why? For years, Marvel cultivated the characters of their main franchise heroes, namely the leaders of the superheroes, Iron Man and Captain America. When we first met Tony Stark, he was nothing more than an irresponsible rich playboy. But then, he gets a wake-up call. When he's kidnapped by terrorists, it forces him to start becoming more responsible, and we see him take control of his life.
I am Iron Man.
And the thing is, with all the other characters, it's like, get them in, get them out, get them in, get them out, get them in, get them out. You're trying to rebuild back the Avengers without spending proper time with the characters and making sure certain things with them make sense. Just to chug up content to say it, to have on Disney Plus. Because, let's be real here, Disney Plus barely has any content. Period, much less any content that is referably as good. So, cranking out and rushing things, they should have looked at DC and have been like, okay, I get it, it just finished. We don't want to lose audience, and obviously the company want to make more money. But you don't rush it like DC, because look where it got them. Only God knows if James Gunn can turn it around and bring DC standings movie-wise back up. But they should have looked at it and been like, nah, we're not doing that. We have to make sure so we get each and every one of them character we're putting out. All right, they never did it. So, yeah.
As we see Iron Man more and more, we watch him struggle with his major flaw, selfishness. But over time, we see him grow, like the time he decides to sacrifice himself by grabbing a nuke and sending it through the portal to save New York City. Here, Tony was no longer the guy who would always put himself first. Tony matures over time, even helping heroes like Spider-Man. By the time we see him in Endgame, he's willing to sacrifice everything to save the people that the world lost in Infinity War. In an ultimate act of selflessness, with limited options left, he sacrificed himself.
I met Jen after she was ghosted by an ex.
We have a
It took her years to get over it, and he just popped back into her life. Looking.
Marvel introduced Steve Rogers as Captain America not long after Iron Man, but he was almost the exact opposite of Tony. He wants nothing more than to sacrifice himself for his country during World War II.
Come on, there are men laying down their lives.
Just couldn't do it.
I got no right to do any less than them.
But he isn't healthy enough to be a soldier. So he takes an experimental serum to make him strong, and he sacrifices himself to take down a plane carrying weapons of mass destruction.
Steve?
He survived, of course, and we saw him take charge and become a confident leader. But when the arcs of Iron Man and Captain America concluded, Marvel had to find new stars for their franchises. Like Falcon, the former sidekick to Captain America. He was a familiar face, but we didn't learn much about who he was, besides a veteran with a troubled past.
You lose someone?
My wingman, Riley.
Then, at the end of Endgame, Steve passes along his shield to Falcon. Suddenly, a sidekick was supposed to become Captain America. But how would Marvel transform Captain America's friend into Captain America himself?
The question.
Enter a new miniseries, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. From the first episode, we do get to know Falcon a little better. We see more of his backstory and his family life in his home state of Louisiana. But the central issue of the series is Falcon's reluctance to accept the Captain America shield and fill Steve's place.
Feels like it belongs to someone else.
Falcon was afraid he couldn't live up to Steve's legacy, but the series establishes this problem almost too well, to the point where they can't stop mentioning Steve and how special he was.
Steve represented the best in all of us. Steve did not put you in jail.
But there has never been another Steve Rogers, has there?
Most of the series ends up focusing a lot more on who Steve was, instead of who Falcon is or will become. So when he finally does accept the shield near the end of the series, it feels rushed. The moment feels like a letdown because it's missing a key element that both Iron Man and Captain America had in their first movies.
You've got to do better.
A dramatic wake-up call when they decide to become the hero. Tony was kidnapped by terrorists. Steve sacrifices his life, but Falcon almost just wandered into the decision. Like he made the choice off-screen and then told us about it. And in a way, it's still about Steve.
It doesn't matter what.
Yeah, because there's constant comparisons. That's the thing that him have to fight against. That's how it goes. As a black man taking up this role in America, and the values that Steve have, you have to prove that you can step into a role. You may not be Steve Rogers, but what can you bring to the table and all of that? Nope, we're still talking about Steve. Yep, Steve. We're not Steve Rogers. Steve did this. This should be no one else's. You didn't prove to us that whatever. Now I'm looking at that new Captain America movie, and we're like, you're using it better, the shield better. How does it go? And now we get reports that Chris Evans is returning back for Doomsday. And it's like, well, that kind of held you nullified. And then, do not quote me on this, but we got reports that Anthony Mackie was not pleased at all to hear that. I don't know how true those rumors are, but it's not looking good. As a matter of fact, it also speaks to the confidence of Marvel Studios, because if you have to announce, say, Chris Evans or Robert Downey Jr. are coming back in an MCU project, you don't have faith in what's going on. You want to have plan and to try dig up. Not a good sign.
Steve thought.
So Falcon ends up feeling like he's still a side character for most of his own series. And after Endgame, a lot of new characters entered the MCU, like Shang-Chi, the Eternals, and the Marvels. But with these characters, it feels like the MCU is aiming for quantity over quality. Before Endgame, Marvel had a storyline centered around 6 major heroes who made up the original Avengers. Marvel focused on developing these key heroes, so we became more invested in them, and it was a lot easier to get behind them.
Kevin, you put us in a position.
Was great, at least as a standalone movie. The problem is that we aren't seeing how Shang-Chi's character is relevant to any other characters in the MCU. Since it was released in 2021, none of the other movies and shows have even referenced it. The MCU...
Yeah, that's the funny thing. Nothing ties into it now. Even before my guy that got removed from being Kang, there was nothing. The last thing the movie mentioned was that something's heading to Earth and they're drawn to the Ten Rings. What it was, we do not know. He's not brought up in literally nothing else, Marvel. After that movie, nothing else. The Eternals, nothing else. As a matter of fact, the Eternals are just now getting some reference in Marvel just because of the Captain America trailer movie that's coming out. because the celestial that came out of the ground in that movie, what was coming out, is the center point of that movie. And it said that adamantium, the thing that's on Wolverine's claws, is what's the main thing they're going to pull from it. So it's like, no, we're getting that. But we're not getting no mention of him, nor nothing. The closest thing I know is that the latest season of What If does have something with him. But What If is just, it's not as relevant as it should be, to be honest. This is the final season. I don't see anything about it. The biggest thing is Starman. Even then, I'm still not that interested in it. But yeah.
Sets itself apart with its commitment to its multi-phase structure that makes all the characters intertwine across the series of movies. That's why the MCU became so unique.
You know, the truth is, when we were doing Phase 1, Phase 2, and Phase 3, there were less projects over more years.
The crossover events gave characters more interactions, good and bad, and it made them a lot more interesting. No two characters showed this better than Iron Man and Captain America themselves.
No trust. Fire.
As the two strongest forces of the Avengers, they butt heads regularly from day one.
There's also something that I gotta make reference. I strongly believe, and a lot of us do, that Chadwick Boseman and Miss Marvel, I forget her name, I think we're supposed to be like the new leaders going forward. I think that was their original plan. However, unfortunately, Chadwick Boseman passed away, so that scrapped that plans. And no one really likes Miss Marvel. I don't like it. I don't like the character portrayal that they give her. I don't like the actor and the way she moves. Certain things don't need to be said. Don't, even if you feel a certain type of way. Ultimately, she killed her character and people from liking her. That's really what it is. I don't. Something about her just don't ring bells. So that's why them two movies is garbage to me. But, and yeah, so that's where that got nipped in the bud.
Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off. What are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Their disagreements come from their differences in character. Tony's stubbornness often gets in the way of Steve trying to lead.
Stark, we need a plan of attack.
I have a plan. Attack.
Steve calls out Tony for not being willing to sacrifice himself for the sake of others.
You're not the guy to make the sacrifice play. To lay down on a wire and let the other guy crawl over you.
I think I would just cut the wire.
They even end up fighting each other in Captain America: Civil War. The conflict brought us emotional scenes like this. It was moments like these between major characters that made us feel so invested in the MCU. And the growth between the characters led to unforgettable moments like the heart-wrenching goodbye between Spider-Man and Iron Man. But after Endgame, the movies haven't brought the characters together enough to show how they develop together. Right now, the characters are...
Here's the thing. I'm not having a problem not bringing them together. I mean, give us a break. We just had 10 years of movies. But I mean, develop them better. Then make sure say I have something connecting them later on. But you didn't have that. Some of them poorly developed in their own movies and TV shows. And there's literally right now no connecting tissue. I heard of a leak in the new Captain America movie where apparently Sam's about to reassemble the Avengers, and he goes on the computer and pulls up a video of 3 characters. The characters I pull up were Kate Bishop, the new Hawkeye. That what is her name? America Chavez from Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, and somebody else at Riri Ironheart. And I'm like, if that is true, oh Lord help us. Now I know Spider-Man is in a limbo with Sony, so that's that. What about Thor? We don't hear about Thor and then the child, or nobody else. Bruh, I have no clue where this is going. But yeah.
all on their own paths. Sometimes it doesn't even feel like they're in the same universe. And the superheroes aren't the only issue. A big part of making the MCU work is having a strong central villain character, like Thanos. Thanos made an appearance 7 years before Endgame in the first Avengers movie. And for years, the MCU carefully set up the plot of Infinity War and Endgame with the placement of the Infinity Stones and other connectors. These all pointed to a looming battle with Thanos. Now, a new villain has entered the universe, Kang. There's only one problem. We've only seen him in one movie, and we haven't seen any connections between Kang's story and the rest.
And before we get to the end of this is also another thing. We're not using Kang no more. Obviously, this video is about 6 months old. We already know what happened to the actor, so granted he's free of it. I don't think Disney's gonna go back to him. Ergo, why Robert Downey Jr. is playing Doctor Doom going forward. But what on earth are we seeing him? I mean, it makes sense to put him in Fantastic Four, but how does that tie into everything? We don't know. Shall see. Another thing I saw glimpses of, rumors of, was that Doctor Doom and Reed don't have no formal relationship, which to me makes no sense seeing how intertwined those characters be. So right now we are stuck in limbo. So we have to really wait and see what 2025 have in store for this, because they had to redo all of this. So I don't know where all these characters come into play. But
the characters in the MCU. So, right now, there's no big reason to rally behind the heroes. The question remains, will they ever have a moment as powerful as this again? Or will we be left asking after every new release,
Iron Man,
what's the point?
Okay, guys, that's the video. This has been How Marvel Destroyed Itself by Cine Lumi, if I'm pronouncing it right. The link to the original video will be in the description below. Make sure to go over there and like and subscribe to the channel so you can grow. But yeah, that was that video, and those were my thoughts. If you like this video, don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you next time.